Hello, friends. I hope you're having a blessed day today. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Take Five. The subject this week is just a one-word title. It started out as a couple of words, but then we had to shorten it because I didn't preach but half of it. So the message is just simply entitled Forgetful. That's what we're calling it, Forgetful. And we're learning something about the life of Joseph and him coming into the completeness of his dream and some things that he did there to help him remember how God had blessed him. He had two children there as he is vice pharaoh, vice regent in all of the land of Egypt. And he had two children there named Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh's name meant, "For God has made me forget all my toil in all my father's house." So he named his child so that every time he saw Manasseh, he would remember how God helped him to forget all that he had been through and all the problems that he had with his father's house. The second one was named Ephraim, and that meant God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks as we get to that. This week, we're just dealing with the subject of forgetful. Now understand that in order to be able to get to this dream, fulfill this dream, and stand in this dream that God has given us, we're going to have to learn how to be forgetful about some things like Joseph did. Now, by the definition, we know that forget does not mean that we can erase it from our memory. It's impossible to do that. But we are able to put these things behind us, and even though we remember them and have memories of them, and even though those memories can be hurtful, painful, and cause us grief and regret, we can still move forward because we have decided that we're going on with God, and we are not going to let the things of our past keep us from embracing our destiny. No rearview mirrors in our walk with God. If any at all we do is glance up in the mirror every once in a while. Just glance up there to see where God's brought us from, and we keep moving forward. So today I want to start naming some things. We've got 4 things that we named on Sunday. We've got 4 days left, and so we're going to look at one of these a day. And I want to start naming some things that we have got to learn to forget. Things we must put behind us if we are going to fulfill the dream God has given us. Here's number 1. We must learn to forget past failures. Forget past failures. Man, I'm telling you, if you're not careful, and all of us have failed. All of us have made mistakes. Some of us failed this past week, perhaps even today. And so we've got to learn to put these things behind us. One of the greatest examples you'll see in the life of Peter, when they were on the storm and Jesus came walking on the water there in Matthew 14, Peter said, "Lord, if it's you, let me come to you on the water." And Jesus didn't even bat an eye. He said, "Come on, just come on and walk with me." So Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water to come to Jesus. And he was making progress. I don't know how far he walked or how far he had to go, but somewhere along the way, he began to get afraid because he got his eyes off of Jesus, and he began to take notice how the waves were boisterous and how the wind was blowing and how the lightning was flashing and the thunder was crashing. And he began to take notice of all of those things. And when he took his eyes off Jesus and he lost faith and he began to sink into fear, he then began to sink into the water. And he cried out, "Lord, save me." Well, let me tell you something. Our God always does that. When you cry out for him to save you, that's exactly what he does. And Jesus reached down. The Bible said immediately he reached down and picked him up with his hand and stood him back up on the water. And then the next thing he said is something that a lot of people I don't think would care for. He said, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" He gave him a little tough love right there. Now, most of us, man, if our pastor did us that way, whoo, have mercy. We find us another church, a church where they love people or something. But Jesus had to give him a little tough love right there because the intention for Peter was for him to give the inaugural address of the New Testament church. He's going to be one of the founding fathers of that thing, and he's got to have a little tough love now to prepare him for where he is going. So he rebuked Peter, and then they walked back to the boat together. Now here's the thing. It's not the failure in itself that's so bad, because God knows and knew before he chose us that we were going to fail. Even if it was willful and purposeful mistakes that we just chose to do something contrary to what God was telling us. He knew that. He knew what we were going to choose, and he chose us anyway. The real milestone in this is how we perceive our failure. Because if we're not careful, pride will slip in there and throw guilt and condemnation on us to such a degree that we won't even cry out for help when we know we need it, and we'll just sink beneath the wave. So you got to ask yourself, is our faith in God's dream that he's given us, is our faith in God's love and his divine calling on our life, is it enough for us to stand during times of personal failure and call out to God and put those things behind us and get up and walk again? Peter failed in front of Jesus, but let me remind you of something. He failed in front of those disciples too. And it's a whole lot easier to fail in front of the Lord than it is to fail in front of the church sometimes. And so Peter had options there, but Peter said, you know what? I don't care if they scorn me. I don't care if they mock me. I don't care if they ridicule me. It doesn't matter as long as I get another opportunity to walk with the Lord again. And he did, because they walked back to the boat together. As long as I get another opportunity to walk with the Lord again, it's worth everything they say. And he chose to put all that behind him so that he could get up and walk again and fulfill the dream that God had for him. When you fail, you've got to be willing to get back up and go again. Put it behind you. Forget about it. Forsake it. Let go of it and walk with God. Proverbs 24 verse 16 says, righteous people fall again and again, but they always get up. It's the wicked who are defeated by their troubles. They always get up because they have a reason to get back up. Because when you're righteous and you fall, you fell from something and you've got a reason to get back up. Micah 7 and 8 says, I have fallen, but enemy, don't laugh, for I will get up again. That's the decision we've got to make. We have got to decide, I'm going to forget about my failure. I'm going to forget about my past mistakes. I may remember them, but I'm not going to let them hinder me from moving farther along the way and moving ahead with God. Let me remind you of something before we get out of here. You know, Peter was just as big of a traitor as Judas was, because remember, Peter denied the Lord 3 times. Judas sold him for 30 pieces of silver, and Peter was just as big of a traitor. The difference in the two was Peter learned how to forget, and he learned how to put his mistakes behind him. Judas couldn't forget, and he ended up going out and committing spiritual and physical suicide because he could not forget. Hey, friend, let's learn how to forget, forsake, and let these things go. Put them behind us, and let's put our eyes on Jesus, and let's move forward into the dream God has for us. Hey, it's been good being with you today. I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Wednesday's edition of Take 5. Till then, God bless you. Have a great day. Hey, trust the Lord, my friend. He will never fail you.